chicane.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the Middle of the Pack Racing League GT3 Championship for 2022, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today we mark round 5 of the 9-round championship, where our drivers are continuing the story of the America's Cup as they make their way into the second round of the America's Cup here today in Canada, specifically at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, for a circuit that hits hard and fast, not just in terms of its straightaways and its chicanes, but also the walls being ever present and ever close to our drives, and it's that fine balance of risk versus reward. Push too hard, you'll find yourself in the walls. Push too little, you'll find yourself off the pace. But if you get it just right in the Goldilocks zone, then you'll be nailing it and right on top come at the conclusion of the racing. Of course, all of our racing being brought to you via live post-round broadcast, where the broadcast itself is live, but the racing is not. The racing having occurred as of earlier this week on what was Wednesday, the 12th of October, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live for all your viewing pleasure. And our schedule for tonight in British Summertime, that's BST or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1, is as follows. In just under 13 minutes time, we'll be heading into our 15-minute qualifying session, while drivers will take to the field in 2 separate groups and look to dish out their qualifying laps and set themselves up as best as possible for our one and only racer tonight, and that is our 25-minute sprint race, of course, which will kick off at approximately 8 o'clock this evening. And I can assure you now, whilst there's very little strategy with regards to coming into the pits and making pit stops, there should be no pit stops on the cards whatsoever. There's going to be a lot of strategy here in terms of picking the right time to overtake or waiting for the opportunity should there be a mad scramble for position, given 2 drivers or more in front are battling for position. But all that and more will be revealed as time goes on, there's no doubt about that. But this broadcast being brought to you via 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are a YouTube user, you can go to youtube.com and search for TX141TX or Paul Walsh and tune in there. Alternatively, if you're more of a Twitch user, you can always go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in there. Now, who is TX141 or Paul Walsh? Well, that is I, your host and commentator. My name is Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action tonight, and indeed for the entirety of the season. And what a story it has been so far, whereby our Euro Cup, which ended a couple of rounds ago, the opening 3 rounds definitely set the presence and the pace for what is to come in the America's Cup. And last time out, we saw brilliant racing at Road Atlanta, and it all continues here today in Canada at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And speaking of that schedule or a season ahead, let's take you through the calendar as it stands. What do we say? Today, with the racing having occurred on the 12th of October, we're at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, right in the middle point at the moment in the championship, with being 9 rounds. So this is really the crossing over point between the first half and the second half. But before today, we kicked off the America's Cup last week with Road Atlanta, and there we saw the overall tone being set for our circuits in the America's Cup, with the big emphasis is on trying to carry the speed out of the corners and get back on the throttle as soon as possible. And whilst our final circuit in the America's Cup may buck that trend somewhat, the Interlagos circuit in Brazil in a week's time, where there's a greater emphasis on overall balance of performance there and elevation change, you can imagine our drivers will be looking to use the power of their cars to the best possible capability to carry as much speed on the straightaways down towards each and every corner. But before that, we started off with the Euro Cup, Bucking Cup number 1 at rounds 1 through to 3. That all kicked off on the 7th of September and concluded on the 21st of September, and then the 3 rounds which started off at the Red Bull Ring, a circuit which really set the tone of the racing. Fantastic racing throughout the field, and particularly some great battling within both the Pro and the Pro-Am class, and then the Hockenheim Ring continuing that with some fantastic battling within the midfield of the Pro-Am class, and then at the Silverstone circuit we did see some great battling through the field in the Pro class, and also some great mix-ups between drivers in the Am class. A great battle in particular between the likes of Michael Zepp and his colleagues as they made the way on through the British circuit. But today we're at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and looking ahead to Cup number 3, our Japanese Cup, which marks rounds 7 through to 9, we'll be heading to the Twin Ring Motegi circuit to celebrate everything that's Japan, starting on the 2nd of November before making our way to the Suzuka circuit, and then wrap it up at the Fuji Speedway on the 16th of November. And those 3 circuits will be, as I say, a celebration of everything Japanese, but also those 3 circuits being highly technical circuits in nature and really a different world apart from the Euro Cup and the America's Cup. The Euro Cup being a balance of characteristics, the America's Cup being a focus on power and corner exit, and the Japanese Cup being highly technical in terms of handling and also balancing the weight transfer of the car. And in GT3 machines, you have to be a master of all those different characteristics if you want to get the best out of the machinery, and that's why the prizes that are coveted in this series are so highly coveted in the fact that it really is pushing our drivers to the limit. Well, speaking of our drivers then, let's come on to the standings going into tonight, and we start off with the Pro overall class standings. So this is the Pro Championship as it stands over the entirety of the 9 rounds, and we can see that Luke Burtenshaw going into tonight leads at 191 points, with that win, of course, at Road Atlanta, giving him the advantage, but he has an even greater advantage now with Jason Landry going into round number 4 with a car change, where we saw Landry move away from the Porsche 911 machine, which Burtenshaw is also running, to the Lamborghini Huracan Evo, and as a result, with that car swap comes a 30-point penalty. So Jason Landry finds himself in P2, having taken a great performance at Road Atlanta, ahead of Jordan Butler by 4 points. But the question is, can he hunt down Burtenshaw early, or will Burtenshaw have the upper hand and now be able to use that gap that he's been gifted in order to be able to run away? And when I say gifted, that 30-point gap, of course, he's been doing the job out of the circuit. There's no doubt about that. Jordan Butler in P3 on 159 points, ahead of Tanner Dibble, who was not in attendance last week. But if we do see Tanner Dibble return to the circuit, which we will tonight, we expect Dibble to be right up there, taking the fight to Butler, with John Lauzon in P5, and then Ben Rose, Edwin Onofre, and Shane Larson completing the overall Pro Championship standings. We then come on to the Pro-Ams meanwhile, and we can see here the complexion is a little bit different, with James Logsdon leading by 16 points ahead of Ilya Speaker, and then Matthew Smith in at P3 there. Of course, Matthew Smith having been promoted to the Pro-Am class based on his performances in the Euro Cup in the first 3 rounds, and Matthew Smith not having the strongest of days at Road Atlanta, struggling by comparison with perhaps what was expected of him, but still plenty of rounds to come, and he still holds that P3 comfortably by 7 points over Jermaine Warren. But the question is, can Logsdon have the fight taken to him, given the pace that we have seen from so many drivers in our Pro-Am class? They've all been busy squabbling with one another, but can any of them really start to dethrone Logsdon? Well, the focus will be on Milan Harris in particular in P5. He is currently 7 points off of Jermaine Warren in P4, and Milan Harris taking that great result at Road Atlanta with the win last time out, and that has perhaps set the starting trend for Milan Harris's rise to prominence within the class. But of course, you have Fernando Takahashi 2 points behind, looking to keep him in close nature, and then we do have Justin Braggan, John Wilding, Spencer Torrance, and Alexander Carver-Robbins completing the top 10, with John Kroom and Albert Brown completing the rest of the Pro-Am division standings. We then come on to the AM class, and here we can see that Jesse Jefferson Jr. leads by 6 points over PG Christensen. However, the story of the AM class last time out at Road Atlanta was the majority, if not all of our drivers, that made critical mistakes at one point or another. So we didn't really see anybody come to the rise in the vacuum that's been left behind by Matthew Smith, and we're still waiting to see that one driver who could potentially really assert themselves as the #1 contender in class. But Jameson Jr. leading at the moment will look to continue that lead tonight ahead of Christensen, with Dan Ocaranza there in P3 on 93 points, 3 clear of Glenn Bratton, and it's Mark Senegal in P5 there, completed the top 5, but he is only 1 point ahead of Michael Zepp, and we know that the two of them love to go toe-to-toe. We then have Kevin Lizarazo there in P7 on 32 points, 8 clear of Adrian Fedorowski, with Joe Nagy and Roger Ganesh completed the top 10, and then we have Jose Mari, Lee Porter, Samuel Curran, Blake Phillips, Blinder Mailing in P11 through to P15, and keep your eyes in particular on Samuel Curran and also Blake Phillips. And the key thing about these two is, as we'll see very shortly when we come to the America's Cup standings, these two performed an absolutely brilliant rivalry at Road Atlanta, and it was between them the win, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that as we go deeper and deeper into this season. But you may have noticed that Blake Phillips is only on 28 points. He's been dethroned and dropped down to P14, and that's because he too has taken a car swap penalty. He's lost 30 points, and whilst we're not 100% sure what he swapped to, we're waiting to see what he takes to the circuit, I can definitely tell you that Blake Phillips right now will be going all guns blazing in order to get those points back as quickly as possible. But he does have Samuel Curran as a main rival, and we'll have to wait to see if anybody else can get in between them. Then we have in P16 Stefan Chalafu, and then we have Sahaj Padidia in P18. Oh, excuse me, almost sitting there, Sahaj Padhia, I should say. As I almost lose my voice once again. But that is how you stand currently in the AM division overall in the championship. And then we come on to the America's Cup, and we can see here Luke Burtenshaw leads after 1 round of the America's Cup on 50 points, 3 clear of Jordan Butler, with Jason Landry in P3 on 42 points, and then John Lauzon and Edwin Onofre complete those who picked up points and participated at Road Atlanta. Ben Rose, Shane Larson and Tanner Dibble yet to put a score on the board. We then come to the Pro-Am class for the America's Cup specifically, and that confirmation there, Milan Harris taking the opening win in class in the Cup, ahead of James Logsdon and Ilya Speaker P3, with Justin Braggan and Fernando Takahashi completing that top 5, and then Jermaine Warren, Albert Brand and Matthew Smith completing all those are participated, with Alexander Carver-Robbins, John Kroom, John Weldon and Spencer Torrance yet to put a score on the board. We then come to the AM class, and this is where we see that emphasis on Blake Phillips and Samuel Curran, with the two drivers there only separated by a single point. That's how close it was, and indeed, it was back and forth. At one point on one lap, they exchanged the lead position 5 times, and well, it did calm down a little bit towards the end, but Phillips had the advantage at the end. Will he have that again today? Adrian Fedorowski in P3 there, the best of the rest at the moment, 1 point clear of Dan Ocaranza, with Kevin Lizarazo there P5, and then we have PG Christensen only a further point behind, with Jesse Jamison Jr. a point on his heels, Mark Senegal the same, Glenn Bratton the same, so it's so very close in the midfield in the AM class as well, and then Braden Melling, Joe Nagy, Jose Mari, Ali Porter, Michael Zepp, Roger Ganesh and Stefan Chalafu yet to put some points on the board and not participating at Road Atlanta last time out, if my memory serves me correctly. But coming from Road Atlanta then, let's talk about our circuit for today. Well, of course, it is the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, named after the local hero who unfortunately lost his life in a motorsporting accident quite early on in his career in terms of his continuing rise to prominence. But still, Gilles Villeneuve lives on the hearts of many Canadian motorsport fans and indeed global motorsport fans. And this circuit, named after him, of course, after his death in 1982, is located in the city of Montreal, but specifically in the Parc Jean-Drapeau, which is one of the 3 major parks within the Montreal city, and this circuit therefore is a bit of a stranger in the fact that it is on a man-made island within Montreal, and it is a major natural park which has the circuit run on through, and therefore this is a hybrid street road circuit. Now, just take a step back there. A hybrid street road circuit, what on earth does that mean in straightforward English? Well, you're going to be seeing a circuit very shortly when we look to our live cameras, whereby this circuit has walls that are very close, and you're going to see in the background, there's got all the city buildings around it, so it is effectively within the street confines. However, there is a lot of nature around the circuit as well, a lot of trees in the infield sections and also around the circuit, and also a large amount of water around the circuit, whether it being a man-made natural island. So put all that together, it's a natural surrounding, but it's got close-in walls, and that's why we call it a hybrid street road racing circuit. Consisting of 14 corners, this circuit, located in the Quebec region of Canada, is one which is much loved by international motorsport, and indeed, it has been the home of the Formula 1 Canada Grand Prix for many a year, multiple decades now, and, well, our drivers will make their way down the start-finish straight, as we can see here from the circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com, all the way out towards turns 1 and 2, known as Virage Centre, before making their way out of the turn 2 hairpin, and all the way out to the first of many chicanes, turns 3 and 4. There, they'll exit out turns 3 and 4, a medium speed chicane, charge through the kink of 5, and head up into the second chicane, of which is turns 6 and 7. Survive that, they'll then make their way down another back straight, all the way out towards turns 8 and 9, the third chicane in sequence, before heading their way down towards the turn 10 hairpin, a very slow corner of the turn 10 hairpin, and we can expect plenty of battles on the brakes into the hairpin, or will our drivers decide to wait, come out of the hairpin through the kink of 11, and it's flat out all the way down the Droit du Casino straight, from turn number 12 up towards the final chicane, known as the turn 13-14 chicane, which has the Wall of Champions line on its exit. And why is it known as the Wall of Champions? Which you're going to see on our onboard qualifying laps and our exterior qualifying laps. We have got a wall that is very close to the exit of the chicane, and that is where many a champion, particularly in Formula 1, such as Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill, have hit the wall at high speed and seen their hopes of winning the race shattered or torn to pieces. Could that happen to any of our drivers tonight, of course? Could they perhaps take out the suspension or the handling of their car? Well, we'll have to wait and see, not that we wish it on them. Now, coming from our circuit then, to a quick recap of our rules. In terms of setup, our driver shall be running the iRacing sprint setup for all rounds, with car fuel loads being restricted to 51%, and that means they do not have to take on fuel in the pits for the sprint races, but they will in the feature races, which are of course rounds 3, 6 and 9. In qualifying, we're using an open qualifying format now, which will see our drivers take to the circuit for 15 minutes and split into 2 equal halves, with the AM class taken to the circuit for the first 7.5 minutes, and then the Prime and the Pro classes jointly taken to the circuit for the second 7.5 minutes. In the sprint race, the race will start under manual double file rolling start, with the formation being held up to the green flag. Each driver has 1 fast repair available, and the drivers shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 or more instant points. But that's enough rules, regulations and introductions. I know what you're all here for, and let's head back to the circuit here and get ready to go racing. And as we see Luke Burtenshaw in particular making his way down the Castle Straight all the way up towards the final chicane, we will very shortly be getting the transition over to qualifying. I do believe the timer at the top of our screen is a little bit erroneous there, as again I almost lose my voice. Sorry, I think I do have a cold coming, so if I do have to briefly pause at any point, I hope you do understand. But the checker flag is out on this practice session, and Burtenshaw is the man who looks to have a plan here, the Vector by RSR driver, and can he potentially spring some surprises today and make it another win on the bounce? Well, he's been the fastest driver in this final practice session, but now we head into qualifying and all of our drivers get ready to go. But of course first, it is our AMs who take to the circuit, and our Pro-Ams and Pros will be made to wait just that little bit bit longer. They have to be a bit more patient as they do get ready to go. And our first driver out will be Lee Porter as he makes his way out of the pit lane through turn number 2 and heads on through here on his initial warm-up lap. But as he comes on out, we do say hello in the Twitch chat in particular to Max LP80, and I do believe that is Lee Porter himself. Good evening to you, Lee. We also say hello to the real Jizzle, and I hope you're doing well, the real. And it does look as though there you're absolutely hyped up. And we also say hello to John Wilding there in the Twitch chat. Greetings to you, John. And as I try to get ready to go on qualifying here, anyone who is tuning in right now who hasn't had the opportunity to say hi, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch. It doesn't matter. We don't discriminate, and we welcome everybody here at the Middle of the Pack Racing League. And if you're sat there right now wondering how you can potentially sign up for a future series with the Middle of the Pack Racing League, more details on that at the end of today's broadcast. But for now, we have to focus on our drivers who are signed up and going racing. And as we see Lee Porter heading his way down towards the turn 10 hairpin, and going onto the maximum braking here as he comes onto those brakes, goes a little bit deep, but to be fair, warming up the brakes, and I think he can allow himself going a bit deep on a warm-up lap and coming on out here, and we'll ride on board with the Porsche driver as he takes us around for the first flying lap of this qualifying session in the AM class, but it's going to be a very tricky circuit to qualify well for the simple reason, as we said earlier, you push too hard and those walls do get ever closer the more and more you push. It's that fine balance, but we ride on board now with Porter as he takes us through the final chicane. The world champion's on the right there and just missing it as he heads on down the start-finish line and heads up towards turn number 1. So as he crosses the timeline, then to go on to his first line lap, bringing the car into the right-hand side and onto the brakes about 100 metres from corner apex, coming down to second gear before flexing the car into the centre of the road and through turn number 2. In first gear there, and exiting out to the corner, now feeling his way up through the gearbox as he heads up towards turn number 3 into the first of the chicanes, looking to his left there for his brake marker and using the 50-metre board to judge as he comes down to second gear, rolls out into third gear on corner exit and just using the exit curve in there as he now comes to the long right-hander at turn number 5 and heads into the braking zone for turn 6 and 7. Back onto the anchors, coming all the way down to second gear and rolling the car from left to right. You see then an actual S sequence of the chicane and being complied with the car, and as he makes his way out to turn number 7, now heading up towards the chicane at turns 8 and 9. Long stretch here, a nice run. This could be where we see some overtaking moves attempted in the runs of the third chicane. Onto the brakes on the 100-metre board, coming all the way down to second gear, patting over the curve in there. You can do that in the Porsche. Indeed, all of our cars should be able to do that at the third chicane. And as he makes his way all the way down to the left pingle, turn number 10 hairpin, heading in towards the braking zone here and braking the 100-metre board, coming all the way down to first gear. Maximum steering lock here as he comes on through. That's how tricky this hairpin is. You have to go to maximum lock and get on the pound nice and early. Now it's flat out all the way up towards the braking zone for turns 13 and 14, but not before the kink of 12 as he comes on through the right and kink here, but lets the car drift out to the left hand side here to set up his braking line for the final chicane. As he gets ready to go on the brakes, looking for his brake mark on the left hand side. 4, 3, 2, and braking at about 120 metres down to second gear, straight line in between the two apexes, letting the car power on through and coming to the timeline. It's been a very smooth and consistent lap from Porter, and as he comes to the timeline, what's it going to be for our first time on the board? It is going to be a 37.387. Well, I can imagine that our primes and our pros, or a number of them, will look to beat that. That is a good time to start off proceedings in the AM class. We do see the majority of our AM drives are a little bit delayed by comparison coming out of the pits. Perhaps some nerves just creeping through to some of our drives and then waiting to get some space. Are we expecting anybody to try and utilise the slipstream here in order to gain an upper hand? Well, as we see, Stefan Chalafu was not off circuit there. We see Chalafu coming to the timeline very shortly. The slipstream is not too important here at the Canadian circuit of Gilles Villeneuve. It's more of a case of focusing on what you can deliver as a driver first and foremost. So Chalafu does go provisional pole with a 36.805. 6/10 faster than Lee Porter right now. Chalafu absolutely a dominant lap, but I am hearing that he did have an off-track as part of that lap, and that may have actually led to the lap being invalidated. So therefore, we might just have to take that 36.805 with a pinch of salt, as the Pro says, before we see how they line up on the grid. As we have heard, there was an off-track with that lap. We're not sure exactly where it's happened. And unfortunately, with regards to replay files and iRacing, we can't confirm whether there's been an off-track and it's invalidated the lap. The laps count as is. And speaking of laps counting, well, Jesse Jamison Jr. in the Mercedes AMG Evo 2020 machine as he comes out to turn number 9 and heads up towards 10, just clear of the wall there. The key thing about Jamison right now is he's only 100, if that, off of Joe Nagy in P4. That shows you how close they are in terms of times here and how well matched for the most part this AM class is. Everybody right on the line as they come on through, and Zeb now a further, 1.2 seconds off of Jameson, jumps up to P6. Plenty of times to still come in from our drives, but they've only got 2 more laps to go here, or if that, with 5 minutes already complete, 2.5 minutes left in their qualifying session as they come on around, as we do see here Zepp heading up towards turns 3 and 4 in the Audi, the sole Audi in attendance today. We have 23 drivers in attendance out of approximately 32 drivers entered into this series, so we do have quite a full haul, and as he makes his way down towards turns 6 and 7 here, looking to keep the car nice and composed. It goes a little bit deep, just overcooks it on the brakes, and that's to settle the car down. You can see the rear was starting to slide on out, but Zepp making sure to keep that rear in check. But still, more times coming on in, and Shelby sets a 38.7, but does not improve on his previous best. Lee Porter, however, getting a little bit closer by comparison, or has he? In fact, Lee Porter not closer by comparison. Instead, Ocaranza has closed up, and Shalafu jumps to the pit, and well, I think Shalafu feels he's got it all said and done, although he is leaving the pit lane at the moment. I don't think he's going to have enough time. He's going to be right on the bubble with regards to whether he can get on around to do one more lap. I think he's going to have literally given himself about a second, if that. He can't afford to have a mistake on his out lap. But meanwhile, speaking of drivers coming on around, we haven't got too many heading up towards the start finish line at the moment. It's going to be Lee Porter again, who's the next driver to come on across, and Michael Zepp just behind, as we see here Porter heading on down the Casino Straight all the way up towards turns 13 and 14. As he comes on roaring through, here comes Zepp as well, and we are expecting that Audi to be strong in the low gear acceleration, but not as strong in terms of top end speed. That's been normally the runner form. Zepp comes offline there to try and get himself set up a little bit better, but meanwhile Lee Porter heads to the timeline here for what is another qualifying lap, and what his previous best was a 37.39. He crossed the line. It's going to be a 38.163, so he's going to leave it all to the final lap. What about Zepp? Meanwhile, he comes across the line, does not improve. That was a setup lap, of course, and now he goes on to his final flying lap. We've got some more drivers coming on through, including Ocaranza, and ahead of him as Ocaranza gets it a little bit wrong there, just a bit of dirt here, taking off the edge of the front of the car in terms of that turning capability. Meanwhile, Jameson Jr. coming to the timeline, and can Jameson Jr. move higher? No, he cannot. It's a 38.8. He does not improve, but he has still got one more lap up his sleeve. Meanwhile, as he parks it on up, we do have Shalafu absolutely charging on around right now, and Shalafu, he's going to be very close. This is going to be nip and tuck whether he's able to get one more lap in as he comes on through. 10 seconds remain. I think he's just about done it. He's timed this very well, and I think he's now going to go all in on one final lap as he heads to the time. In fact, he got across there with 2 seconds to spare. What about other drives out on circuit? Well, Glenn Bratton coming on through, but he's being impeded a little bit here as he tries to find his way on past a BMW M4, another one of his own car, which is going a little bit slow, and I do believe that's Christensen who was tip-time through the chicane. I think Christensen not comfortable in carrying speed on through. Neither of them improved, so that's their qualifying session done and dusted. We've also got Adrian Fedorowski here heading towards the timing line, and can he improve? Currently P8. Can he make it a little bit higher? No, he crosses the line, and it's not an improvement. So Lee Porter and Shalafu are the only drivers yet to finish their AM qualifying sessions, as our primes are now out on circuit. And as I say, Shalafu has literally left it to the last moment. And I do believe Michael Zepp's also out there. Porter comes on in, so he's decided enough's enough. He can't improve any further. And Zepp coming on through. No, he's making his way to the pit lane as well. So it's only Shalafu right now who, if he's able to improve, could do. Meanwhile, as all our drivers come on through, it's look, well, it will be Stefan Shalafu, who we believe will be on pole. Although, as we say, there is a question about a off track during that first lap. He set that 36.8. You're still on the timing board there, but I'm confident it is going to stand, and the pole position will go his way as he comes out of the hairpin and heads on down. But it won't be long now before we do have our primes and also our pros starting to take to their first flying laps, and in particular the first Pro Am drivers are coming around. That will be James Logsdon, who we see here heading on down the Casino Straight as he makes his way towards turns 13 and 14. The Mercedes driver right now looking to get himself set up for Team Bareboat, as we do see Shalafu into the pits, and we now ride on board with Logsdon as he takes us around for a lap in the Mercedes AMG. So actually roaring his way through the chicane, that you can see mercilessly bouncing the car over the curbs, and heads on up towards turn number 1. Full throttle here into the braking zone, and from 5th gear he comes all the way down to 2nd gear, rolling the car nicely on in, bringing it over a bit more to the left hand side there, down to first for Raj Senna as he comes on out. Little bit of oversteer there, you saw a bit of wheel spin creeping on the rear end as well, and that caused the car to kick round, and that's cost him a bit of the run out of turn number 2, but still heading through the first chicane after turns 3 and 4, rolling over those curves and making his way on out so close to the wall. Drives get there on the exit of turn number 4, and as he comes to the King of 5, completely committed as he goes on to the brakes into turn 6. back down to second gear, and you can see again really trying to use those curves to rotate the car here, given the Mercedes' front engine rear wheel drive. It has a natural nature to understeer as he makes his way all the way down towards turns 8 and 9 as he gets ready to go onto the brakes here, full speed, and now onto the anchors here, coming all the way down from 5th to 2nd gear, straight line between the two apexes, coming on out, and a little bit of unstable nature there as he came through turn number 9 over the apex curve and heading up towards turn number 10 here. Hasn't been a perfect lap for Logsdon, but to be fair, this is his first flying lap, so the tyres may not be fully up to temperature or as grippy as he would like them to be yet. Tyre temperature is so critical to have that grip to be able to attack the lap mercilessly. But as he comes out of turn number 11, he is really going for it here as he heads up towards the kink of 12 and on towards the Gatineau straight. He comes on through the kink then, now flat out all the way, and I think he's really going for it here in terms of trying to set an initial banker, which is representative of what he can do as he now gets ready to go into the final chicane, braking on down there from 130 metres, and as he heads on through, really carrying the speed and just missing the wall there as he comes to a timeline. And what will it be for Logsdon for his first flying lap as he comes on through? He makes his way into turn number 1. It's going to be a 37.3, so right now it's a good lap to start with, but I can imagine some drivers will be going even faster. Jordan Butler there immediately shatters the overall pole lap time provisionally of a 36.2. That's almost 6 tenths faster than Chalafoud's lap in the AM class. Burtenshaw meanwhile coming on through, not quite enough. It's currently just off of a 10 from Butler, but you can definitely see there that Burtenshaw also starting to make haste as he comes on through. We've still got some more drivers coming on around, including Matthew Smith here, who's gone P9 to start with on a 37.468. Justin Bragan all the way down to 41.2, and then Jason Landry in the Lamborghini a 35.782. That is absolutely sensational for his first flying lap. That is almost half a second faster than Butler, well, to be more precise, 4.5 tenths. And right now, you would imagine that Landry has absolutely got him hammer and tongs in his first flying lap. And I think that is going to be a high bar to beat for anybody as he makes his way up towards turns 5 and 6. Well, in fact, they're coming into 6 and 7 as he goes on to the brakes here. But Landry definitely setting the pace. What about Fernando Takahashi coming to the timeline right now? He's currently the only driver who's yet to set a time as he sets his first flying lap, and it's going to be a 37.761. Not the fastest of laps, but I think just getting himself set up for his second lap, which should be more representative of what he's looking to achieve here. As we do see Jean Marino in the YouTube chat there saying good vibes, and I think absolutely excited for the racing and particularly supporting Fernando Takahashi there saying go attacker, and well, welcome to the broadcast, John, as we do see what is Takahashi making his way out of turns 3 and 4 and up towards 5. But as he comes through the kink of 5 here, the Mercedes driver's got a lot to do, and he hasn't got long to deliver it. Only 2.5 minutes left in the Pro-Am and Pro qualifying session as he comes on through the chicane. And as he comes on through, we do look from him to the leaders of the Pro-Am group at the moment, and that's John Wilding, who's just gone fastest ahead of the BMW M4 there, and I believe that is the M4 unless I'm mistaken, and John Lauzon from Blue Flag Motorsports as he comes on through. And Lauzon currently a pro driver who's down in P10 overall, P5 in class, as he makes his way out to the turn 3-4 chicane. But still plenty of times to come and plenty more on the board. But the question is, can Jason Landry go even faster as he crosses the timeline? No, not this time. He's getting himself set up for another lap. And let's focus on Landry here as he comes on around, because right now this man is absolutely on fire in the number 5 Lamborghini as he comes out of turns 1 and 2. Looking to go even faster on his what will be his penultimate flying lap in this qualifying session as he comes on through the turn 3-4 chicane. You can see they're absolutely trying to take as much of a cut over the curve at turn number 4 as he comes through 5. They're so close to the inside wall, and our drivers have got to be careful, and that really emphasises that street circuit nature of the circuit at points, given how close those walls are. But again, you can see all the natural landscape around. That makes you feel as though you're in a bit more of a natural road racing environment as he heads on down towards turns 8 and 9 as he makes his way on to the brakes here. Well, Landry looking good so far. We've got a few more drivers starting to head towards the start-finish timeline in order to get updated times on the board. We'll let you know if anybody does improve. We are expecting that James Logsdon may be improving, as he has currently gone a bit faster on Sector 1 and also Sector 2, but he doesn't improve in Sector 3, so he stays where he is in P8 overall. But Landry comes on out towards the turn 10 hairpin there, and so far Landry has not gone faster in Subsector 1 or Subsector 2, and he's going to have to do it all then in the final sector if that, as we do see Burtenshaw improves in P3 to 36.237, also Onofre to 37.661 in P14, but Onofre not having the strongest of qualifying sessions at the moment. Overall P14 in class, in the Pro Class P6, as we see here Landry coming to the timeline, which is not an improved lap on the whole. Justin Braggin's improved to 37.239, that's putting him up to P11 overall. Landry comes to the timeline, does not improve, still 2/10 off, and now we're only 20 seconds away from this qualifying session being done and dusted. But what that means is now everybody who's out there is on a final flying lap. Burtenshaw and Dibble both into the pits, and Tanner Dibble on his return after being absent at Road Atlanta has gone P4 so far overall, 6/10 off of Landry's provisional pole lap, as we do have some more drives making the way on around. And as we do see here, Logston heading on down on the brakes here in towards turns 8, turn number 10, I should say, getting a little bit confused by camera angles. Logston right now trying to do everything he can. We've got Milan Harris, who's decided to box. Also Braggan, who's boxed. Most of our drivers have actually decided to come on in, not expecting to improve at the moment. So in fact, and it looks as though Carver Robbins, who we haven't really talked about, Carver Robbins has gone provisional pole in the Prime class. That's been off camera, but he set what is a 36.86. Well, my goodness, he's literally crept that one in underneath our noses, but that's absolutely phenomenal from Carver Robbins, and we'll have to wait and see if Wilding can respond as he comes on through the chicane. I don't think he can, as he gets it wrong. They're coming through turn number 14, and the car comes on around, but thankfully does not send it to the wall, and that means the car is preserved. They're not going to have to do repair work, but Butler comes on through, as does Carver Robbins, to complete the final flying laps. Can either of them improve? As Butler comes to the timeline, will sectors 1 and 2 will not improve. Sector 3, meanwhile, he does improve, but it's not enough. What about Carver Robbins? He comes to the timeline, he does not improve either, but it's enough for him, and that means that it will be Jason Landry who takes overall pole and pro pole ahead of the field, and then we will have Alex Carver Robbins who takes pole position in the Prime Class P6 overall, and Lee Porter, 7 Shalafu there in P5 who takes pole position in the AM class, and my goodness, that is an absolutely sensational lap from Shalafu to take P5 in class, and now we get ready to go racing. But definitely there we have one AM driver who has really put down a statement to the rest of the AM field, which is he has delivered, and we thought it would be the story of Phillips or Curran who would be able to take that pole position in class, but not to be. Shalafu has definitely put his foot down today. Now we wait for the transition over to the grid, which should only be 1 to 2 minutes away here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. But as we do wait, we have seen that big theme of drivers really having to push it to the limit and trying to stay away from the walls. And of course, qualifying, there's less pressure on you with regards to the drivers around you. But when we do go into the race, there's that extra pressure of the drivers nipping at your heels or trying to chase the driver in front of you. And could we see a couple of drivers have a near brush with the wall, or far worse? Well, of course, we don't wish it on any of them, but it can happen. But right now, all of our drivers currently just itching to go racing here, as we do have a slight delayed transition over to that grid. I think we are just waiting. In fact, qualifying has just finished. I can confirm, and we will get that grid in process as of now. So as our drivers make their way to the grid then, this is how they line up for the purposes of round number 5. So, taking pole position overall and in the pro class, Jason Landry, the privateer, with a 35.786, a brilliant pole lap ahead of Jordan Butler by 4.5 tenths. The DNA Motorsports driver will line up P2 and ahead of Luke Burtenshaw, vector by RSR's driver, who leads the Pro Championship P3, joined by Tanner Dibble from DNA Motorsports P4. Then on row number 3, taking the pole position in the AM class, P5 overall, Stefan Shalafu from middle of the pack racing. The Canadian with an absolutely brilliant pole lap, joined by the pole sitter in the Prime class, their P6 overall from QZ Motorsports, it's Alex Carver Robbins. Then we have John Wilding and John Lauzon on row number 4, the battle of the two Johns, you can imagine, with James Logston and Milan Harris behind. On row number 5, the two Prime drivers who are no strangers to battling one another, one from Team Bear Pope, the other from Rockefeller Racing. Then Justin Braggan and Lee Porter line up on row number 6. On row number 7, it will be Matthew Smith from DNA Motorsports, having a stronger qualifying session today compared at Road Atlanta, with Dan Ocaranza there from Chile, the Chilean lining up P14 for the privateer outfit. Then we have Edwin Offret and Fernando Takahashi line up on row number 8, both of them having difficult qualifying sessions, with the two AMs of Joe Nagy and Jesse Jemison Jr. behind P17, P18 on row number 9. And then completing our first 10 rows, Samuel Cram from Team Bear Pope, joined by Michael Zepp from QZ Motorsports P20. Then we have Adrian Fedorowski and Glenn Bratton line up P21, P22, and PG Christensen, the last of our 23 drivers, lining up solely on row number 12, the privateer in P23. And we'll have to look to see how the 209 driver gets on from the back of the field as we get ready ready to go racing here. The gridding process is complete, and our drivers will have a short formation lap, which will see them be taken from where's the kink at turn number 12 all the way up towards the start-finish line. And well, as our drivers get ready to go, we've got 25 minutes of racing here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal in Canada. Who will come out on top? Will it be the story of Jason Landry holding on to lead from the start to the finish? He was denied at Road Atlanta, having to push so hard, but pushed too hard in the end. Could we see Carver Robbins bring home his maiden win in the Pro-Am class in the series, and can Shalafu potentially take the fight to our pros ahead of him, or will he just focus on bringing home the AM win? All that and more we'll find out very shortly as our drivers get ready to go racing. They head up in towards the final chicane, and well, it'll be to Jason Landry, who takes us to the green, and he can go any time after the safety car has come into the pits and gone through the safety car line, which I believe it has just now. So we wait for Jason Landry to take us racing. And it's lights out and away we go as Jason Landry puts the throttle down and heads towards turn number 1. 23 drivers heading to the opening corners. How will they all exchange positions as onto the brakes they go? Landry times it well. Look at Shalafu, meanwhile, making a move already versus Burtenshaw, but Burtenshaw getting back ahead. Carver Robbins holding John Wilding behind us. Wilding's elbowed out a little bit there as they made the way out of turn number 2. No contact, but Lau's on in the end trying to make the move on Wilding. He can't make it stick, however. Milan Harris losing the place to Justin Braggan behind. And further back, we can see that Joe Nagy, oh goodness me, 3 wide on Carranza. We've also not for it, and Tanner Dibble's been turned off circuit, and we also see going for a spin. That's a not for it as he returns in the Ascension Racing driver from the privateer outfit, looking the wrong way as he tries to get himself back up to speed, but it's a disastrous start for many there. And meanwhile, Joe Nagy, the Rockefeller Racing driver, going a bit deep into turns at 6 and 7, that holds off Fernando Takahashi behind. Joe Nagy making some of the greatest gains of everybody in this open lap so far, but I think there's some damage to that Mercedes. It's going quite slow on the outside, and look at Fernando Takahashi trying to make the return move up the inside as Michael Sepp in the Audi also trying to come on through behind the Brazilian. Onto the brakes they go, and Sepp comes on through there. Nagy goes to turn in and finds an Audi R8 creeping up the inside, and has to back off as they make their way down towards turn number 10. But it's not over yet in terms of battling for our AM drivers as we see them head up towards the braking zone for turn number 10. And here comes Samuel Grand, who looks to gain another place. He's already gained 2. He's up the inside there, and Nagy as they come through the right-hander and gains another as Fedorowski tries to come through, but no success. Meanwhile, looking from them to the front of the field, well, Jason Landry's run away, but let's not forget Jordan Butler right now is not running away as they head onto the brakes of the chicane, the turn 13-14 chicane, and Butler's ahead. But meanwhile, oh my good lord, and Burtenshaw and Shalafu have come to get into the war with the champions, and well, both drivers absolutely having a disastrous moment. Well, that's going to release Alex Carver-Robbins up into P3, and now the Pro-Am leader absolutely flying as he makes his way onto lap number 2, but he's got John Wilding behind as they head on through, and Burtenshaw's had to jump to the pits after that contact between Burtenshaw and Shalafu, and I have the feeling that I think Shalafu there came in a little bit too hot, and Burtenshaw in the end just had nowhere to go, and contact unfolded as a result, but our camera angle was not flattering for the pair of them, and well, thankfully I'm not in the steward's box. That's for the stewards to decide exactly how that one played on out. But as we return to lap number 2, then we can see Fernando Takahashi here now trying to make ground once again, getting back ahead of Zepp quite early, and now Carranza chasing after Michael Zepp in the battle for P3 in the AM class, P13 overall, as they make the way through 5 and down towards turns at 6 and 7. Onto the brakes they go, and you can see Fedorowski under pressure from Tanner Dibble, and Tanner Dibble, of course, in that 3-wide moment, heading into the turn 3-4 chicane on the open lap and falling away for him, not in a happy place, and Dibble's got it all to do, having lost 13 places at the start as they make the way up towards turns 8 and 9. But as they do, the pro driver's going to try and pick off one place already, but remember, he's battling with AM drivers here. The pro driver's not gaining class position, all he's doing is gaining overall position as he comes out of turn number 9. A sweet and simple move there versus Fedorowski, getting heads up towards turn number 10, but onto the brakes he goes shortly, and as he does head up towards the braking zone for turn number 10, we do look from him to a bit further up the road. In fact, Dibble goes very deep. We're going to look away, and hold up a second, who's doing a bit of rallycross there? Well, that's Graham from Team Bearpo. I'm not sure what's happened there. Now, was there contact, or was he just got a mistake under braking? Well, regardless, they're right on the grass of the apex of turn number 10, and Graham going slowly here. I think there's a problem with the car now, whether he's had a whack to the car or not from another driver, or whether he's just simply done something on the curve that's damaged the suspension. Well, he's trying to get himself back up to speed now, but PG Christensen coming on through. I think Graham's got a problem as he makes his way up towards turns 13 and 14 with the car going very slowly indeed. And meanwhile, Jesse Jemison Jr. has had a moment down at the turn 10 hairpin, as we're to understand. He's in P21. A number of drivers not having a strong start to their race, but meanwhile, speaking of strong starts, it is the case that Lee Porter here, despite not qualifying on pole in the AM class, that wins to Shalafu, an accolade which saw him qualify all the way from P5. Lee Porter has avoided all the drama of the opening couple of laps and right now is leading comfortably, as meanwhile Chalafu is really in a bit of a weak position. Although I say that, Jordan Butler there, that's on the apex of, unless I'm mistaken, turn number 5. I'm not sure what's happened to Butler, but the DNA Motorsports driver has gone all the way round, and well, whether it was contact between himself and who would it have been, we would have been battling with John Lauzon, but he's going to let everybody on through. But as he does here, well, that's only going to open up more opportunities for other drivers further afield. As we can see here a little bit further back, we've got James Logsdon battling hard with what is there, in fact John Lauzon and Milan Harris also with him as Logsdon goes up the inside. The Team Burpo drive goes up the inside of Lauzon from Blue Flag Motorsports. They make the way for the King of 11 and Logsdon is ahead for now, but of course the problem is here it's a long straight all the way towards turns 13 and 14, and being the lead car in the sequence is not necessarily the best thing. But look at Milan Harris as we ride on board here with the P6 driver from Rockefeller Racing, the Pro-Am driver currently P5 class up the inside there. Allows, he looks up the inside as well of Logsdon, but he can't quite find it. But Logsdon gets a poor line coming out of the chicane, and now can Milan Harris convert this momentum and pressure into a move into turn number 1? My gut feeling says he's feeling feisty. He's looking up the inside here. Will he go all the way into the brakes? He's going for it, but he's not quite close enough to get fully alongside, and as the back out, but you can see there Logsdon really out of his comfort zone here as Harris is putting that pressure on left, right and centre as they come out of Virage Centre and head up towards turns 3 and 4. But of course, as they now make the way into the tightest chicanes here for what is now for them the 4th time of asking under race-based conditions, you can see now Harris has to back off a little bit dirtier, not too much width to the corners. That means he's not really able to make a move unless Logsdon makes an error, which Logsdon is not characteristically known for making errors under pressure. If anything, he's normally very calm-tempered as they make the way through turns 5 and 6. Logsdon and Harris both tapping the wall. They're in sequence. They make the way down towards what is turns 8 and 9, heading on through, and as they do head on towards the brakes very shortly, Harris has now got to wait once again as they come on through turns 8 and 9 and head up towards turn number 10. As they make the way absolutely drawing on through. John Lauzon there being mugged by Harris in the run up towards turns 13 and 14 on the previous lap. But to be fair, Harris absolutely going for it. He knows he wants that position in the Pro-Am class of a Logsdon. That would be P3 in class if he's able to take it, and P4 overall, which will be a huge achievement. But as he comes out to turn number 10, ahead of them you've got John Wilding and Alexander Carver-Robbins. But you can see Carver-Robbins up in the distance there, comfortably P2 overall right now, and the Pro-Am driver really flying for QZ Motorsports as he heads on down the Casino straight. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we've got a battle here between Curran and Glenn Bratton. Curran up the inside of Bratton at turn number 10, and we've also got just ahead of him, well, it's the battle of the two QZ Motorsports drivers, Fedorowski and Michael Zepp. Well, they're both teammates and great friends in the paddock. Will they be friends out on circuit? I would imagine there's a little bit of rivalry between the two of them as they head on through turns 13 and 14, both of them over the chicane, and as they come on out there, well, Zepp almost having a crazy little. Fedorowski been a bit more conservative with his exit line. He's still very close behind, and this is in the battle for P4 in the AM class effectively. So as they make the way on to the brakes, well, Zepp a little bit ahead still, and Fedorowski not able to go for the move, but Zepp goes deep, goes wide and takes the runoff area. Then there's no grip on the marbles, and he loses the position to Fedorowski and almost kicks the car in the round, but catches it nicely as they make the way back up to speed. Fedorowski now up into P13, that's P4 in the AM class as they head into turns 3 and 4. But meanwhile, a little bit further up the road, Milan Harris being passed here by John Lauzon. This is a battle for overall position, P5 overall. It's the Pro coming on past the Pro-Am as they make the way up towards turns 8 and 9. Onto the brakes they go, and Lauzon getting back ahead. And I wonder if Harris is potentially going to use Lauzon as a bit of a battering ram versus Logsdon. And when I mean that, I'm not saying that Lauzon's going to intentionally try to knock the Logsdon off the road, but the idea being if he wants to come on through Lauzon, he will essentially get Logsdon to open up the space or battle on the inside into a corner, and therefore he'll take the pace out of the pair of them, and that's where Harris can potentially look to make a move. But right now, I think that Lauzon has got to focus a little bit more on keeping Harris at bay as they make the way out of turns 10, 11 up towards the Kinker 12, because right now Harris is not backing off the throttle whatsoever, and I don't think he gave up the position willingly. I think it might have been a tiny little error and he lost the place as a result. As they make the way up towards turns 13 and 14 here, 8 minutes of the race concluded so far. We've still got 17 plus the final lap to go, and as they come through turns 13 and 14, both drivers keeping it absolutely clean and critical as they make the way towards the timeline. Meanwhile, further back, we can see here Joe Nagy going a bit deep for Rockefeller Racing at turn number 10, ahead of PG Christensen. He made the move up the inside of Christensen as we're just hearing. Meanwhile, into the pits comes Stefan Chalafu. He's come on in from what was P9 at the time, and well, Chalafu here, I think this looks like he's going to have to come in to do repair work to the car unless I'm mistaken. mistaken. It's gradually creeping towards the pit stall. I think there's a problem with the car for the Canadian, and it's all going from fantastic to bad to disastrous right now as he does box, and I think they've got to do some work on the car. That car is just not in a comfortable place, but with him falling down the order, other drivers will rise, but these drivers will not be too much affected by Shellerfoot's continued descent down the order, and that is because they're battling for P5 right now. It's Lauzon versus Harris still, with Team Bear Pokes Logston just ahead as they make the way up towards turns 8 to 9 onto the brakes. They both go shortly, and as they head on through the right into left, where you can see Lauzon right now not really making any ground on Logston and not breaking away from Harris. Harris staying right there with them as they make the way up towards turn number 10 once again. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we still do have a growing battle for P3 in the AM class, and that battle is between Fedorowski, who you can see here at the head of this trio, ahead of Michael Zepp, and then Samuel Curran, who behind right now, after having a very difficult start and difficult qualifying session, has definitely shown us a lot more race pace to his driving today rather than qualifying pace. And perhaps the Team Bear Poke driver just couldn't quite hook it up in qualifying, because he qualified all the way down in P19, and right now P14 overall. Yes, we do have to include the fact there have been a few drivers who've dropped the ball in the race so far, and indeed we have that quite significant instant of multiple cars going off at turns 3 and 4 on the opening lap, but that doesn't have to take away from the fact that Graham right now is definitely building up pace and looking a little bit stronger in race trim as he makes his way on down up towards turns 13 and 14, but he's got to make his way past Zepp and Fedorowski, and whilst both of them are teammates battling for position, you can imagine the two teammates will quickly turn and look in their rearview mirrors to see that they do have a Bear Poke driver who's looking to try and take the places of KZ Motorsports as they make the way up towards the timeline. But as they charge all the way through up towards turn number 1 once again, we do look from them to a bit further down the order to what is Jesse Jamison Jr., who after an early spin, an early off at turn number 10 on the opening laps, there's a bit of damage to the front end of the car. You can see there on the front left bumper and the front right bumper, for the driver's perspective, it's not quite fully aligned, so I think there has been a bit of a knock to the car, but he's still pressing on here, P20 or P9 in the AM class, as he makes his way out the final corner and onto another lap for MOP Racing. But as he heads on across that line, we must look from him to Fernando Takahashi, who right now battling side by side with Tanner Dibble. Onto the brakes they go. Dibble up the inside there for P9 overall. The pro driver comes from past the prime driver as they make the way out of turns 8 to 9 and up towards 10. Meanwhile, I can tell you that whilst that's going on, here comes Curran up the inside of Zepp. And Zepp right now, well, that was a bit of a dive from Curran, but to be fair, the door was left open. He had confidence on the brakes. I think he's been noticing that Zepp's not as confident on the brakes, I should say, into these chicanes, and therefore Curran just making the move count and making it come from quite a way back. To be fair, sometimes you've got to lick the stamp and send it, and that was sent first class. There's no doubt about that as he makes his way out of 10 and up towards turn number 12 he goes. Meanwhile, further up the road, allows on with a slowdown. I think he's cut track limits at the final chicane, so he's having to give up time, and he's had to give up place to Milan Harris as a result. And this is not good news for Lauzon, because now he'll have Matthew Smith behind him. Of course, Matthew Smith making his way in pursuit of that P6 position overall. He's not battling with a driver in class here. He's battling the cross classes, and he needs to get a move on as well, because he has the AM leader of Lee Porter right now. And Porter's pace, credit to Lee Porter, is actually matching the last driver in the top 5 of Milan Harris on average here. Lee Porter's really turned the wick up in race trim as he makes his way out of 4 through the kink of 5, and as he comes running on through here, I think for Lee Porter, he could be looking, if he plays this right, he could be looking at an opportunity for top 5 finish overall, which would be huge. And I think it will be the first time he's done that all season as he makes his way out to turn number 7 and down towards 8 and 9. But as he comes on through, we do look from Porter, who's on a charge to another driver who's trying to charge his way out the order, and he gets past PG Christensen there. Christensen going a bit deep in turn number 1, and that is Justin Bragan as the privateer comes out of turns 1 and 2 with wall wounds on the BMW M4. There's no doubt about that. The car not in a happy place and heads up towards turns 3 and 4, and that's not going to make the front end maneuverability of that BMW M4 any more enticing as he comes to the right hander of 5 and up towards 6 and 7. But it's going from maneuverability being enticing to drivers who are dicing. We must look to John Wilding here, who finds himself under a bit of pressure from James Logston as they make their way up towards turn 13-14, and they head into the chicane. Logston backs off, but as they roll the way on free, you can see Wilding there with some damage to the car. In fact, multiple bits of damage to the car. That really does not look too very well presentable. In fact, it looks quite compressed, I must say. And as they make their way out towards turn 1, it's going to be Logston on the inside, Wilding on the outside. Onto the brakes they go. Logston covers off the Porsche driver here and makes it a smooth move up into P3 overall. That's P2 in the Prime class, picked up now for Logston. But the big challenge now for him will be he's got a 4-second gap to Carver Robbins in front of him, and can he hunt down the Pro-Am leader and of course the Pro-Am pole sitter here today and potentially pick up the win? Well, Carver Robbins is flying right now. I should tell you that he's lapping in the mid-37s. But to be fair, our overall leader, Jason Landry, is lapping in the mid-36s. Landry's just simply run off into the distance for this one. I don't think we'll see too much of him from our driver's perspectives. But meanwhile, speaking of much of battling right now, we can see here Fedorowski versus Gran into the chicane of turns 3 and 4. Fedorowski holds the inside there, makes sure it goes as late as possible on the brakes. And same with Gran held back there as we ride on board with the BMW M4 driver riding on board from the roll cage as he makes his way up towards turns 5 and 6. Onto the brakes he goes. It goes a little bit deep. However, the car just fighting with the driver. You can see there trying to turn in and just found a wall of understeer, and the car washing out forwards as he makes his way up towards turns 8 and 9. And will Gran definitely fast, but not comfortable, I think, in the dirt yet of that Porsche in front, and being about 7 to 8 tenths off of that Porsche of Fedorowski in front. He will be feeling a very distant toe, and with it just this slight imbalance on the front end downforce. Of course, these GT3 cars running a significant amount of downforce in terms of the overall package on both the front end and the front end and also the rear of the car, and that can just unsettle the capabilities of the vehicle, particularly through medium speed corners and also into quite heavy braking zones when they try and go for the turn in. But as he comes out to turn number 10, we must look here from Samuel Gran to what is somebody dropping down the order, and John Wilding. In fact, hold up a second, what on earth has happened here? I think John Wilding's had a scrape with the World Champions again. Well, I say again, I do believe that's where he might have picked up a little bit of damage early on, and that has released a good number of drivers on through, including Milan Harris, John Lauzon, also what is Matthew Smith, Lee Porter, Tanner Dibble, and Fernando Takahashi. Wilding has dropped all the way down from what was P3, P4 in the Pro class to P6 in the Pro class, P10 overall, and now just trying to bring it back together and bring it to the finish as he makes his way through the turn 3-4 chicane. And in front of him, that is Fernando Takahashi, who will say hello there to Rafael Soares in the YouTube chat, who is cheering on Fernando Takahashi as well. And I think the Brazilian driver has quite the fan club for this series, which we do love to see. And as he makes his way on through turns 6 and 7 there, he does have the pressure now of trying to keep his current rival of Wilding at bay. And of course, these two are no strangers to battling one another. We saw plenty of battling between them in the GT4 Championship earlier this year, as hosted by Middle of the Pack Racing League, as they make their way down into turns 8 and 9. But coming on through, I think Takahashi in the car that's been unsoiled in terms of any damage picked up will feel a little bit safer compared to the wounded Porsche behind John Wilding as he makes his way up into turn number 10. And coming onto the brakes, 9 minutes still to go here. This race definitely advancing quite rapidly, the time flying on by. And for our drivers right now, they've really got to think about, is it now time to consolidate position, or do they need to focus on pushing a little bit harder? Well, I can tell you one driver who is trying to push as much as possible as he comes into turn number 10 is Samuel Cran, who as he makes his way out to turn number 10 and up towards 11, 12. You can see Fedorowski ahead of him getting a bit of a snap oversteer moment coming out of the turn 10 hairpin, but the Porsche driver doing everything he needs to do. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we've got Jesse Jemison Jr. battling with PG Christensen as they head into the braking zone for turns 8 and 9. No move at the moment for Jemison Jr., but Christensen goes a little bit wide, and as a result falls off circuit at turn number 9. And well, Jemison Jr. makes the move. Meanwhile, ahead of them, John Wilding's had another moment, as we understand it, at the chicane, the final chicane, and the DNA Motorsports driver has dropped even further down the order, releasing drivers left, right and centre right now. It is not the DNA Motorsports driver's day as he makes his way through turns 1 and 2, but coming back to the point from earlier, we were talking about Grant trying to make the charge after Fedorowski in the battle for the final spot of the podium of the AM class, but I think also for him what he's got to worry about is that Zepp is going nowhere fast in terms of falling away. And meanwhile, whilst that's happening, we're hearing that Luke Burtenshaw's had an instant out of the circuit. I believe he just went very slow at the turn 10 hairpin, to be fair. I think it's the case that some of our drivers, when they do lock up the brakes into turn 10, we do have them go so slow that our automated crash detection system thinks they've had an instant, but Burtenshaw's definitely not had an instant there. He's running P21 and all the way down, but as he heads on down towards turn number 1, we can see looking back from Burtenshaw back up towards Gran, we can see him right now trying to chase down Fedorowski, but I think he's struggling a little bit in terms of when he gets close enough to that Porsche, just feeling the wash of that dirty air off of the Porsche in front, and that's what's keeping Fedorowski comfortably ahead as they make their way down to turn 10 once again. But Zepp also there, approximately what is at the moment 1.5 seconds back, and looking to try and come on back in the remainder of the race. But as they come out to 10 and through 11, we say hello there to what is John Wilding in the YouTube chat, saying John Wilding is a hack, laugh out loud, and also Sam C, who I do believe is Graham himself from Team Bear Pope, saying that he's also a hack there. It's great to see you guys tuning on in, and I do love a little bit of joke and banter in the YouTube chat, and I hope you guys are doing well as the racing continues here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And well, whilst we've not got long to go, we could still see some major moves. And speaking of a move, that is Dibble up the inside of Porter coming out of turn number 2 up into 3, and I think Lee Porter just having a bit of a slow exit out of turn number 2 and deciding to let Dibble go here. Lee Porter focusing on one thing and one thing only, and that is bringing home the AM win, and completely understandable here, given he's yet to pick up a win in class all season. It'll mean a lot to him to bring on home. That'll be some huge points on the board into the midpoint of the season as he makes his way out towards turns 8 and 9. As he charges on down towards turns 8 and 9 and heads on through to complete another lap in due course. We must look from him to Jordan Butler. Right now, the Pro Drive had a difficult moment earlier on at turn number 5, and the car went completely around. It was parked on the turn 5 apex. We can see here the number 72 driver of Butler from DNA Motorsports going around the outside of Zepp in the run down towards turn 8. Can he get it done, or will it be a little bit of a move too far? Well, Zepp backs out there and decides, you know what, I'm not going to fight this. And completely understandable, he's not really battling the driver in class. Meanwhile, we can see here Fedorowski versus Grand as they head up towards turn 10. And it's going to be Coran on the inside, Fedorowski on the outside. Here it's a battle on the brakes. They go side by side into the hairpin. And well, Fedorowski here has been passed, but he's got a lot more room to play with as he almost hits the wall there. My goodness, well, you couldn't predict that was going to happen in terms of how close he went to the exit wall. But it's now a drag race through the Kicker 12 onto the Casino Straight. And as they make the way all the way out towards turns 13 and 14, you see both drivers, they're battling for leverage. And I think Coran gets ahead initially into the braking zone. But will it change here as they come on through? Beautiful camera angle. This will show you how close they do get to that exit wall. And as they make the way on out, well, Fedorowski loses the place, and now he's got to try and focus on getting back that P3 in the class come the finish. 5 minutes still left for them, but right now Coran definitely on flying. But his next target 5 seconds up the road is Dan Ocranza, who we see here, the Chilean, the privateer in the 216 machine. Well, we haven't really talked about him too much since the start of the race. Of course, we did see him involved in that 3 wide moment heading into turn number 3 on the open lap, which he survived. He managed to keep the car on the straight and narrow, and right now running in the last top 10 positions overall. Oh, goodness me, and in fact going a little bit slowly there on Ocranza as he now brings the car back up to speed. Or was that just the camera being deceptive? I think Ocranza's got a problem with the car because he is going very slowly right now. I don't know what's happened here, but Ocranza really going slow, and I think, well, something has gone wrong. What exactly has gone wrong, we'll find out very shortly, but he has got the whole cluster of drivers behind. That's Coran. We've also got Fedorowski, who goes a bit deep on the brakes, and that's the straight line into the chicane, but it's late drama here in the AM class, and in fact we just had it confirmed it's a slowdown for Ocranza as they make the way up to speed. And well, Ocranza now has got to be very careful here because at any moment he could have Coran alternative. Butler trying to come on through. Behind we've got Zepp and Fedorowski, the two teammates, Q rivals as well. They're going to be battling for P4, P5 in the AM class, P13 overall. Unlucky for some, will it be unlucky for one of them? We'll have to wait to see, but right now the AM class definitely seeing all the fire in action as they make the way down the Casino Straight. And well, we can see here Ocranza in the Ferrari, a very lonely Ferrari in terms of it's the only Ferrari in attendance here today, with Ferrari a GT3 Evo trying to hold on here for P2 in class as he makes his way out to the final corner. 2 more laps to go, perhaps the third on the cards, depending on the pace of Landry and where he is on circuit. But there's not long left in the day here for Ocranza, but can he bring it all together, or will he be denied the second step of the podium here win the remaining time? You would imagine, as we run on board the gearbox here, the Ferrari driver, if he goes a bit deep and coming on through, that is there going to be Coran, who comes on through to take the position, and Butler comes on through with him, and Ocranza they're just not hooking up corner exit, and the car just really, in fact Ocranza just not able to carry any speed. If it's a further slowdown, well, it's not the right time for them. I can tell you that right now, because he's losing places like a stone here, and the 216 driver definitely having a very weak end to his race. He makes his way and he goes deep into turn 5, and as he comes through goes deep into turn number 6, we should say, and as he comes through turn number 7 here, Ocranza right now feeling the pressure from behind. Zepp's got through. Whatever Fedorowski can, the Porsche right here, make his way out the inside into turn 8. He's going to go for it on the brakes, but no can do. He's got to wait once again as they make the way through, but Zepp goes slowly as well. He gets it wrong. It's going to be a continued battle here in the battle for what is P3, the final podium position in the AM class. You can see John Walding's gripped up onto the back of this, and he's thinking right now, okay, fellas, settle down. I'm a pro. I'm trying to come on through, but I don't think they're listed. It's Fedorowski versus Zepp here through the hairpin. It's side by side on corner exit. Zepp's got the wider run here, and meanwhile, you see Walding there literally squeezed to the wall by Ocranza. I think they're Walding trying to take an opportunity, and that opportunity was left waiting as they made their way through turn number 12 and up towards 13. Fedorowski's not got the speed right now. He has to tuck in behind Zepp as they make the way in towards the chicane. Onto the brakes they go, and as they make the way in, Fedorowski looks up the inside. Zepp goes deep to give him the space. They come on out, but right now no change. as they make their way up towards the timeline. We will have 2 more laps of racing here in Canada, and as they make their way across the timeline, well, it's the battle all in for P3 in the M class here, which is the major focus of our attention as they come through turns 1 and 2. It's Zepp who leads in P3 in the M class, P12 overall, Federowski behind him, and then we have Occaranza not too far behind, but Occaranza really struggling right now in the late portion of this race as they make their way up towards turns 3 and 4, and as they come charged on through the first chicane. You can see the traffic jam almost forming behind Zepp here, and that's not to besmirch Zepp's speed or anything along those lines, but that's what happens when you battle here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. You take a huge amount of pace out of the car, and that really upsets the rhythm for a lot of drivers as they come on through, and as they make their way on out, Occaranza are really struggling to come through turns 6 and 7 without the rear end sliding on out. I wonder if there's a problem with regards to the rear tyres. Perhaps he's overheating the rear tyres a little bit too much. Wilding's going to go up the inside here to take where's P14, and we can see here Joe Nagy getting a little bit closer, and also what is behind him. There's Edwin Onofre, who's a lap down, as Zepp goes onto the grass at turns 8 and 9. He's going to lose out, and that means that Federowski now is into P3 in the AM class as they make the way on through. But as they come charging on through, meanwhile our race leader Landry is headed on to the final lap already, and Occaranza off circuit, and I think that's Wilding with him as they've both gone to the wall there at turn number 10. That's happened off camera, but they've come together, I think, and Occaranza waiting for Wilding to return. But meanwhile, we just mentioned his name a moment ago. Here is your race leader, who, as the clock strikes 25 minutes, that means the race will be complete the next time he comes around to take the checkered flag. Since the start of the race, after the drama that unfolded behind him into turns 2 through to 7, he has not seen anything else other than clear track in front of him, and he is running away with this one to the finish. There is no doubt about that as he makes his way to turn number 10. But as he does a bit further back, we've got Dibble versus Lauzon. This is going to go to the wire for P2 in the pro class here as they make the way up towards turns 8 and 9. Onto the brakes they go, no change at the moment, and Dibble trying to hold firm behind Lauzon and trying to get into the head of boys the blue flag motorsports drivers. They make the way up towards the hairpin, but they head into the brakes here. Will there be a potential move? We'll have to find out after, because as they make the way in with it, it's going to be a move. It's Dibble up the inside. There's contact between the two of them, but meanwhile, speaking of no contact with the walls or any other drivers, here comes Jason Landry. He takes it to the checkered flag, and Jason Landry, the privateer, is your winner here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve overall and in the pro class by a margin of 14 seconds, all said and done. And then it will be Alex Carver-Robbins who comes on through to take P2 overall, which is a major achievement in itself for QZ Motorsports, but more importantly for him, the win in the Pro-Am class ahead of James Logston, who comes on through at P2 in the class, P3 overall. Milan Harris will then take P4 overall, completing the Pro-Am podium ahead of John Lauzon, who holds off Dibble to the line after their contact at turn number 10. It will be Tanner Dibble who comes on home P6, Matthew Smith P7, and then to take his first win in class in the season, Lee Porter takes the win in the AM class, P8 overall, the privateer, ahead of Fernando Takahashi P9, and then it is Jordan Butler who completes the overall top 10 as he makes his way to the checkered flag. It's a long run, but he gets there. Coran will come on home to take P11, the best of the rest there outside the top 10, and it'll be Adrian Federowski who takes the final step of the AM podium, P12 overall, and a deserved drive to the podium for Federowski, with Joe Nagy P13. Michael Zepp will then come on home a little bit later, P14. And difficult race for him after it was looking so strong in the mid portion. Justin Bragan P15, and it will be John Wilding who comes on through to take P16. And we've got 2 more drivers on the lead lap coming to the line. Luke Burtenshaw, it has not been his day today, there's no doubt about that. An early instant really upsetting the rhythm of the car. An instant on lap number 1 between himself and Chalafu at turns 13 and 14. Saw them both buried in the wall of the champions, but as he comes to the timeline, P17 for him, and it will be Glenn Bratton who comes on home to take the last finishing position on the lead lap, which is P18 as he comes to the timeline here. P6 in the AM class for the American. The privateer making his way across the line, and that is your standings as they complete the lead lap. But let's take you through that full set of race results subject to any stewards' inquiries with regards to all of our drivers, those who finished the race, whether on the lead lap or indeed laps down. So after 25 minutes of racing today at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada, in round number 5 of the Middle of the Pack Racing League 2022 GT3 Championship hosted on iRacing, it was Jason Landry who took the overall win in the end, 14.2 seconds clear of Alexander Carver-Robbins, with James Logston and Milan Harris there behind, and John Lauzon completing the top 5. Then Tanner Dibble P6 ahead of Matthew Smith P7, Lee Porter P8 taking his maiden win in the AM class, and then Fernando Takahashi and Jordan Butler completed the top 10, with Samuel Samuel Cran completing the start of the best of the rest, P11 there in P11. But as we come on to the individual classes, we started off with the Pro class, of course. We can see here that Jason Landry then taking an absolutely emphatic win. After a difficult day at Road Atlanta, we put the pressure on and it didn't work out. But today, there was no pressure on him other than to break away on the lead lap, and he did that in sublime form, taking the winning class by 26 seconds over Lauzon, with Tanner Dibble completing the Pro podium there, P3, right on the heels of Lauzon come the checkered flag, and Jordan Butler P4, Luke Burtenshaw P5. Burtenshaw having a difficult day, but of course, I suspect now he'll be thinking that this will count as his drop round or his drop score when his 8 best scores are accounted for, and this will be his 9th score that is dropped out, with Edwin off there completing the Pro stands in P6, a lap down as he finished. Then we come to the Pro-Am class, and we can see here after 25 minutes of racing, Carver Robbins taking his first win of the season in what was a brilliant drive from start to finish for QZ Motorsports. 4.5 seconds clear of James Logsdon, who was on the pace, but just didn't quite have enough to close down Carver Robbins come the finish. Milan Harris completing the Pro-Am podium there, P3, ahead of Matthew Smith. A stronger result for Smith today compared to Road Atlanta, and hopefully for him, the trend will continue as the DNA Motorsports driver is really finding his feet in the Pro-Am class, with Fernando Takahashi taking P5 in class, the privateer from Brazil, and then Justin Brown and John Wilding completing the Pro-Am standings. And then we come to the Am standings, and we can see here that Lee Porter confirmed as taking his maiden win in the Am class by 20.5 seconds ahead of Samuel Curran in P2, and Adrian Fedorowski completing the Am podium. Plenty of battling in the Am class, there's no doubt about that, all the way through the race, and particularly in the battle for that final, well, in fact, the final 2 spots on that podium behind Lee Porter, and it was Curran and Fedorowski who made it P2, P3, with Joe Nagy P4 getting ahead of Zepp right at the end, with Zepp making that mistake at turn number 8, Glenn Bratton P6, and then Jesse Jamison Jr., Stefan Chalafu, PG Christensen, and Dan Ocaranza completing the standings, and Ocaranza in the end having a dismal way to end his race after looking so strong, the Chilean, on pace. In the end, it just did not go his way, and now he'll have to think about how that went wrong and look to rebuild it come the next round. And also Stefan Chalafu, an absolutely brilliant pole lapping class, but it all unfolded wrongly at this specific corner you see in the background on the opening lap, and he'll be looking to right the wrongs of round number 5 at next time out. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, those are your standings complete, and now it is time for us to say thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed the show today and want to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, or the MPRL community in short, in terms of the series we host and everything we do in between, then why not head to our official Discord, invite link available on screen as seen there. Alternatively, if you don't want to go to the Discord, which is the heart of all the conversation and information regarding upcoming series, you can also go to our official Twitter, which is at twitter.com/MOP Racing, where you can find out the latest news regarding the Middle of the Pack Racing League and indeed the MOP Racing team. But speaking of the latest news, we'll have to wait and see what news is on the cards when we conclude the America's Cup next time out, because we'll be making our way from Canada to Brazil for the Interlagos circuit, known in full as the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. This circuit will be where we crown our second set of Cup champions in round number 6. The racing action itself will occur on what is Wednesday the 19th of October, but we'll be bringing it to you as if it were live in our second feature race round of the series on Saturday the 22nd of October 2022. Can Luke Burtenshaw hold on to take the crown in the Pro class for the Cup? Will it be the case that in the Pro-Am we will see Logsdon be able to take the Cup, or will we see a late charge for Milan Harris? And in the Am class, it is all open with Lee Porter picking up the win today, and drivers up and down the class having varying results. Who will be our Am Cup winner? We'll find out all that and more in a week's time, but until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain of Spit. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.